Hey guys, welcome to today's video. We're going to be discussing Brian Flores, his class action lawsuit, as well as some of the details that have come out about that. And before we dive into it, please drop a quick like and a sub on today's video. That would really help my channel grow. I'd really appreciate that. With that said, let's dive right into the video, and I hope you enjoy. So to be honest, this is kind of a full breakdown of what Brian Flores is trying to talk about in this class action lawsuit, as well as some of the details that came out. And I've been sitting with this information for a couple days, right? I mean, it was public knowledge on Tuesday, maybe Monday, Tuesday. And I think I'm planning to post this video on a Thursday, maybe a Friday. Right now I'm filming on a Wednesday, but I've been sitting with it for a while, and as soon as it came out, I knew I wanted to make a video on it, but I wanted to sit with the information for a little bit. I want to get my mind going, talk to some people, and really just understand what was happening. So here are the facts, right? These are the facts. Brian Flores was supposed to interview with the New York Giants for a potential head coaching position, right? That was kind of the idea. And what ended up happening is Bill Belichick texted Brian Flores a couple days before his interview with the Giants, saying, "Congrats, Brian. Heard you got the job with the Giants. Really proud of you. Really excited. Whatever." Remember, Brian Flores was in New England a couple of years ago, so he's got the connection with Flores. But obviously, Brian Daboll ended up being the head coach of the Giants, and that's the guy they went after. So Flores knew something was up, and he knew originally that with the Rooney Rule, which is something I'm going to talk about a lot, and for those that don't know the Rooney Rule, basically it was implemented in 2003, I want to say, basically makes NFL teams have to interview minority coaches for potential job openings. And basically, Brian Flores is trying to argue that there is systematic racism in the NFL, right? And that's, number one, through the Rooney Rule in a way of, sure, that's inviting more minority coaches to be in positions of power and head coaching candidates across the league. But at the same time, having to interview a minority coach means just that you're interviewing them just because you have to, and so you don't lose a draft pick, or you don't get fined or something like that. So in a way, Flores is trying to say that it's not fair, right? There's an injustice in the league in the fact that these owners who are interviewing these coaches or minority coaches just because they have to, rather than they actually wanting to. And Flores wants to promote this change, and I think Flores is going on a limb, right? He was fired from the Miami Dolphins for being too difficult to work with, and we're going to kind of talk about that in a little bit. But let's get to the details once again. Flores is, so after those allegations, after those texts from Bill Belichick, after Flores got those texts, he ended up going through with this lawsuit, and he's filing a lawsuit against the NFL, the Miami Dolphins, the New York Giants, as well as the Denver Broncos. And you might be like, why the Denver Broncos? The Denver Broncos, because when he was trying to interview for head coaching positions back in 2019, he ended up meeting with the Denver Broncos. And during that meeting with the Broncos, it was clear that the Broncos were not interested in hiring him. Broncos management, they came to the meeting hungover and completely out of it in regards of trying to get Flores. So that wasn't even part of the conversation. So that's why the Broncos are involved. The Giants are involved because of the text messages and of that Bill Belichick and Brian Flores happened, and Brian Daboll being brought in, and just showing why there's this sort of like idea of like, okay, we're just going to have to interview them because we have to, rather than interviewing them because we want to. So that's part of why the Giants are in there. And then for the Dolphins, I mean, there's a lot with the Dolphins. Being a Dolphins fan, it's really tough. And that's one of the reasons I also want to make this video, is because I wanted to kind of talk about that. And I kind of wanted to go through with it and really just try and explain what happened. So he was fired for being difficult to work with, really. That was the official kind of idea from Stephen Ross. And there were a couple incidents. Number one, back in 2019 when the Dolphins were tanking, remember when they went 5-11, they got rid of tons of players. They got rid of Minkah Fitzpatrick. They traded for first-round picks. And they ended up drafting 2 of that next draft. But Stephen Ross offered Brian Flores $100,000 for every single loss that the Dolphins got, so that they could tank for Joe Burrow. That was the idea. That's what they wanted to do. And looking back on that, that's insane. And coming out only today was Hugh Jackson. Remember when he was the Browns head coach, and apparently he had a similar deal in place where he was offered money to lose. And that kind of goes at the competitive nature of the NFL. If owners are paying their coaches to purposefully lose games, Stephen Ross even saying, "Hey, I'll pay you $100,000, or you can go on vacation. You can travel during the season just so that we can lose games, so that we can get a better pick." That goes against the competitive nature of the NFL. There are 53 guys on every roster trying to win football games. They're professional athletes, and if ownership is going against these athletes and being like, "Okay, you know what? We want to lose so we can get better in the future," no, that's not the way it should be done. If teams are bad, they're going to be bad, and they're going to get good picks. But there should not be the owners should not be paying, or owners shouldn't be trying to lose on purpose. Like, that shouldn't be happening. So that's the number one thing that Brian Flores refused. That was one of the things that he ended up getting fired for, 2 years down the stretch. But it was kind of a multitude of things. And then in free agency, that the season after, Flora was invited to a lunch on a yacht, on Stephen Ross's yacht in Miami, for lunch. And Stephen Ross was going to bring an undisclosed, high-profile free agent quarterback who it's been reported was Tom Brady, which would make sense. Obviously, Tom Brady being a Michigan alum, as well as Stephen Ross being a Michigan alum, and to that lunch, which would be against a ton of tampering rules in the league. And Brian Flores, being that upstanding guy and being that guy who really wants to go by the book, and who is that guy, tried to be like, "Nope, I'm staying out of this. I'm leaving." So he left the yacht, and Stephen Ross was very upset about that. And then there were some incidents during this previous season where Flores wanted a little bit much more power, and those things might have been a little bit more on Flores trying to, didn't really like Tua, didn't really believe in Tua, tried to undermine Tua a couple times. As well as he tried to get too much power. So there were some other things, but it was really this idea of him being, this guy who's difficult to work with. And he, in his class action lawsuit, describes the Dolphins in the NFL trying to paint him as a stereotypical angry black man, or at least those were the words that were used in the lawsuit. And Brian Flores, that's part of the systematic racial prejudice and injustice that Flores is trying to hint at in this lawsuit against the NFL. So those are kind of the facts. Those are kind of what's happening. And more importantly, the NFL originally came out and was like denying what Flores was saying, said that it didn't grant any merit. Anyway, it turns out later, only a couple days later, they're actually going to go in and look at some of their allegations, especially with Stephen Ross. And I think this is a really interesting thing for Stephen Ross too. I think there's two really different avenues here. Number one, the whole idea of the Rooney Rule, having to interview minority coaches, I think is a great idea in the fact that it gets more minority coaches and guys in the building to have potential at interviews and have potential at head coaching jobs. But at the same time, it fails in all reality because it doesn't really get these head coaches their jobs. Because it's just something that teams have to go through, and teams that they're just going to go through the motions, right? They don't have to. They're not obligated to do anything. So there's going to have to be something with that. And I think Flores' lawsuit, I don't know if he ends up winning, just due to the fact that I think that it's going to get a lot of media outlook. It's going to get a lot of press coverage, all that. But I don't know if he ends up winning, to be completely honest. I hope he does, because I hope there's change in the NFL. I think that the NFL is predominantly a league where white owners, most of them, I believe most of them are white owners, really have a large say in everything that happens. And with that being, you're more likely to have these minority voices kind of peter out. So I think Flores, honestly, I don't know if he gets a job in the league as a head coach anymore. I just don't really see that happening. I mean, 100% it could happen, but I think he is going to go along the avenue of more of a guy who's trying to promote change and trying to create change, and hopefully he can create change. We've seen Colin Kaepernick try and do similar things, creating change in the league. That didn't work, and that got shut down. And that's because most of the management and leadership in the NFL is white. So I think Flores is great for speaking out. I don't like the fact that he kind of tried to undermine Tua this season, as I'm a massive Tua Tagovailoa fan. But at the same time, I now hearing all these things that are coming out and all these allegations, especially with Stephen Ross. If those things are true, Stephen Ross paying Flores, offering to pay Flores to lose games, trying to go around the league's tampering rules, trying to bring Tom Brady to Miami, all these things. I mean, Stephen Ross is a terrible owner. That's all I'm getting out of this. Number one, I think Flores has the absolute right, and I think he's doing a great thing in really trying to push this lawsuit and trying to show these racial imperfections in the league. And I think there are there, because if you look across the league, you see white coaches, you see white owners, and at the same time, you just don't see the same level of minority coaches. And that's it's that simple. It really is. But more importantly, I mean, even if you look at guys like Stephen Ross, like the owner of the Dolphins here, I think he overstepped his power too. Obviously, trying to set up a meeting with Tom Brady with Brian Flores, but more importantly, purposefully going against the competitive nature of the league, putting his players at risk. And I mean, every time you go out there on the football field, it's a risk, right? It is of injury, of whatever. And if you're not even trying to win games, like, what's the point? So I think there's a lot here, and there's a lot to unpack. But in my opinion, I think this is going to be interesting, really, really, really interesting moving forward. And I think this is something to really track for the longevity of the league and the makeup of the league and the demographics of the league. Because I think as the league becomes more and more diverse, the better and better it'll get. Including more people is always going to be more important, and it's always going to be beneficial to the league. And to be honest, it's not a good outlook for the league either, from a pure PR perspective. I think it looks really bad, and I think that the league is really gonna have to figure out a way to kind of backtrack, be like, okay, we have to change things. Not only because maybe they don't even believe in the things that they're going to change, which I wouldn't be surprised with, to be completely honest. But at the same time, I think that the league is going to need to backtrack just for pure PR purposes. So anyway, I think that this whole Brian Flores lawsuit, it's going to be really, really interesting. But those are the main things. Remember, the reasons why he's, going after the Dolphins, the Broncos, and the Giants, and then the NFL for the systematic racial biases, especially surrounding hiring coaches in the Rooney Rule. And all the imperfections there. But I think this is a really interesting situation, definitely something to monitor moving forward, as it'll be interesting to see how the NFL reacts to it in the coming days, as well as when this class action lawsuit really ends up getting to court, and it's going to be really interesting. And with that said, that's pretty much going to end the video for today. Did you agree with my analysis? Why or why not? Leave your comments and thoughts in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Also, if you're new around here, please drop a like and a sub on today's video. I'd really appreciate that. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. And until next time, see ya.